Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, welcome to our show. We have gathered together from the cosmic reaches of the multiverse, two of the nerdiest geeks to be found. We proudly present the professor and her geeky girlness herself, Ace. And now it's time. Geeky Kool presents Professor and Ace. Hey everybody, welcome to Geeky Kool presents.
Not Ace.
Not Ace. That is not Ace. It's Bryan. But we are on episode 30. We're happy to have Bryan with us. He's one of our Geeky Kool, one of our Geeky Kool contributors from time to time, and we're glad he's here with us today. Ace had a tooth pulled today, so AJ is in recovery from that, so she can't really talk. The poor thing had a tooth problem, and then she had the flu and thought maybe she had COVID, and then now she's got her tooth pulled, so she's over the flu and over the tooth pulled, so hopefully she'll be back with us next week because we all miss her because she's much better looking than either one of us. So her legs are a lot better than yours, Bryan. Just face it.
Yeah, she doesn't grow facial hair like this, though. At least I hope not.
She does not that I've seen. So, all right. So we're going to talk a little bit of DC Comics today. DC Comics, we're going to talk about comics, movies, and TV shows, kind of what's going on with it. There's a lot to talk about, so we'll do what we can. We hopefully will keep it within an hour. I know lately we've been going way over, so I'm hoping to keep it within an hour or so. And if we go over, we go over. But we'll talk about that. Bryan's one of our expert DC comic guys. He's been a DC comic fan since he started reading comics back in the mid-'80s. Oh, and somebody's walking into his room.
Someone walked in.
oh, there we go. So,
yeah,
Bryan,
since I really started collecting comics seriously back in the 80s when I was in college.
Yeah.
Yep.
So for people that don't know you, tell them a little bit about your comic collecting and what comics that you're into, your favorite character, and all that.
Oh, I'm a bit of a massive collector. My collection is approaching 10,000, and mostly DC. I do have some Marvel stuff that I've collected over the years, and independent things and stuff like that. So in the last 6 months or so, when I finally got moved into my office, when I moved all my stuff in here, we went through all my comics and reboxed them and stuff like that. So that's kind of my background, but I am a huge DC fan. My favorite artist is George Perez, who has done a bunch of stuff for Marvel, but is a massive DC artist. Crisis on Infinite Earths and Wonder Woman and those types of things. Teen Titans, obviously, New Teen Titans. That's where a lot of people
don't forget those
got started with him.
New Teen Titans. Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's my background. And it's kind of funny because I find that I get drawn to the Marvel movies more. I like the DC movies, but Marvel's really figured out how to make a good movie series and link them all together. But DC's done a much better job getting the TV shows to all line up and be entertaining. Whereas Marvel had the Netflix shows and those are really good, but those were completely unrelated. I mean, for the most part, completely unrelated from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Right.
And then the weird thing that was not the X-Men, but what are those? The guy that doesn't talk very loud because if he talks loud, he'll destroy things. That's how much I know about Marvels. The Immortals? Is that what it is?
No, you're talking about... oh gosh, it'll come to me and just give me a moment there.
The dog with the
dog.
thing on his
So
head,
you're remembering that one, the really bad one.
Really bad.
Yeah, that
But I mean,
that one was not successful.
Marvel got it figured out with the Netflix stuff, but that was that little corner
Right.
of the Marvel universe that doesn't really fit in with the rest of the superheroes. I mean, that doesn't fit in with Captain Marvel and Iron Man and those types of characters as well as they, as stuff. So it's kind of interesting. But when it comes to comics, I'm pretty much a DC kind of guy.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
Yes, you have been. We've had a lot of discussions about that over the years, and I like some DC. I grew up with a father who was a big DC fan. So,
Yeah.
but I'm more of a Marvel guy at heart because of Spider-Man and many other things. But yeah,
I know that broke your dad's heart.
It did break my dad's heart. I still give me a good 80s new comic with the Teen Titans, the Legion of Superheroes, the All-Star Squadron. I'm all about this. I will read those all day long. And by the way, you were thinking of Inhumans. That's what it was.
Inhumans. That's
the
what it is.
Inhumans.
It was so bad. I wiped the name of the group from my brain. It was bad. It was really bad.
It's like they forgot to give it a budget for special effects and for writers. I don't know, but the other ones have been decent. Agents of Shield has been good. I've enjoyed Agents of Shield, and I'm super excited for what's coming on Disney Plus. But we'll leave that to that side or over to that side, whatever. And we'll talk about DC because DC does have some good stuff. And neither one of us hate the other company. It can be a fun rivalry, but it's not this. Some people just get way too carried away with stuff, but yeah.
And I will tell you, I tend to get drawn to Marvel comics that have DC people that moved over and worked on them. So that I'm a huge Tom King fan,
right?
And I know that probably has me some enemies right now, but I'm a big fan of Tom King, and so I had to get the Vision series that he did that won all kinds of awards. That they're talking about is part of the idea behind what's going to be on WandaVision. So
exactly,
I'm still talking DC because I'm a huge Tom King fan, and Tom King is one of the big writers at DC. So
yeah, he big run on Batman.
Yes.
Or was it Detective Comics? Is that what he did? Or
no, it was Batman.
It was Batman. Okay, yeah.
He started when they did the Rebirth.
Right. That's right.
System. Okay. Yeah.
All right. So what have you been hearing? Because there's a lot of rumors about DC Comics. Of course, they had the clearing of the heads of much of DC. Right. They brought him in, beheaded him in front of everybody. At least that's what it made it sound like. The bloodbath, as some people have referred to it.
Right.
I think Bleeding Cool referred to it as the bloodbath. Yep. And then there was a second round of it also.
And they were quoting people that worked in DC as that. So, and that all started with them getting rid of Dan Didio.
Mm-hmm.
How I feel about that, I don't know, because so it's just interesting because we don't know much about what's going on at DC after February. I mean, the end of February is still kind of a big question mark. The story right now is that in December they have this Endless Winter story that I think was a storyline that they had started planning as a crossover and then decided let's fill in with that. And then they got 2 months of the Future State, which from what I've been reading about is revamped stories that were going to be used with Dan Didio's master plan to replace all the superheroes with new same names, different people in there. So you're going to have a different person playing Batman, and John Kent playing Superman and all that kind of stuff. So my hope is what we find out is that they're going to do that and sort of like what they did with Convergence and get ahead of the storytelling so that they've got, you got artists that don't have 3 months of time to work on art and story and get ahead so that we don't have some of the problems that artists tend to fall into now. Well, and writers too, where you can't get 12 issues out in a year.
Right.
Which blows
Well,
my mind when we were talking earlier about, give me new Teen Titans, and you got Perez doing fill-in issues of Justice League and doing the Titans and then doing two Titans books at the same time, and then doing Crisis on Infinite Earths all at the same time, and he was getting all these books out without any problem at all.
in all the detail he had. So yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So probably why he has problems with his wrists and hands. So.
Well, yeah, that was a big deal back in the early '90s, but he got past that. He had surgery. It's his eyes now
No, it's true. That's right.
He's having problems seeing, and you can see that in some of the artwork that he does, because he'll have him do covers, and the covers are his pencils are pretty detailed, but he's known for inking his own pencils.
Right.
And putting all that detail back into the inks, and he just can't do it anymore. So.
Right. Well, we all age, unfortunately. I wish I was still in my 20s doing stuff, but yeah. Yes,
you don't have any gray hair, though, so you don't have to worry about it.
Well,
So,
what Marvel
that's
do for you?
You were asking, what do I know about going on at DC? So I think it's interesting, some of the people that they've brought in to kind of helm things, but they have been getting rid of a lot of what they're saying are duplicate jobs. They have editors for each of their major lines, and then under them they've got assistant editors for a lot of the books. Well, I guess they basically cleaned house for a lot of that, and then so we don't know what's going on there. And like I said, I keep watching to see what's going to be released, because they've got everything out through the end of February.
Right.
So I've put in my pull order lists all the way through the end of February, and that's all good and well. But we don't know what's going to happen with the first week of March. So who knows? They just started renumbering all of those books. They started renumbering Flash and Wonder Woman, and I really hope they don't start with new number ones. I really, really hope they don't start with that kind of thing, because that's kind of a Marvel thing to do. Of course, DC did it with the New 52, but at least they let it go till they were all at issue 52 before they renumbered them 4.5 years later.
Yeah, Marvel has a tendency to do that about every 6 months. It's like you get this little 6-month story, and then it's a new, different comic now, sort of same main character, except for with your big lines.
Right.
Yeah. So I understand. No. So there's lots of rumors of where DC may be going, and this is true for Marvel too. But DC's kind of at the front, and part of it seems to be because AT&T decided, we don't need you if you're not making us money, so get out there and make us money, and let's get rid of all this excess weight that's not making money. That's what that house cleaning looked like to me, and I've had other people describe it that way too. So there's been talks of it making all the comics go digital. And I know that they're pushing some of the line to go digital. There's talks of you could see comics go from being single issues to having those 5-issue, 6-issue things and putting those out at some place, like in your big bookstores instead of at comic book stores. There's even talk that just shutting it down altogether, that keep all the merchandising, keep all the creativity for doing movies and television, but get rid of the comics. I mean, you've already got 75 years of source material from DC, so do you really need to keep putting out comics every month, especially if nobody's buying them? So what do you think?
I don't know. I think it. I don't know. This is me as the fanboy. I think that's short-sighted, because we know what it looks like in Chicago at C2E2. We know what it looks like in Kansas City. We know what it looks like at San Diego Comic-Con is less about comics and more about movies and TV shows, but they're still pretty big about comics.
Right.
That's less so than, what is the one that they also have in LA? That's a big DC one. WonderCon. Is that the
WonderCon,
one?
yeah, yeah,
This usually happens, and then they have the New York Comic Con, but those are huge. And I mean, people go there to see artists and find
right.
artists and Artist Alley and all that kind of stuff and meet them and um, you and I both have talked about the fact that most of these artists, if they aren't going to be able to get work at DC or Marvel, are going to do their own thing.
Right.
I find it interesting that we were talking earlier, but Image is now a huge place for people to go. And, you know, Image, that was people running away from Marvel to start their own company, but it was only the artists that could only draw women with huge tops and long
It was
feet.
the 90s. It was the 90s.
But
people were different then.
But it's funny when you go back and you look at those same artists now. They've grown older and their style has changed.
Right.
But Image now is where a lot of these artists work, and you know, Image is the home of Skybound, where you got you know, The Walking Dead, and one of my new favorite comics, Firepower. I don't know if you've checked this comic out or not, but it's by Kirkman,
right?
And it's amazing. It really is. Chris
Who was
Samnee
yeah, I was gonna say I thought Sam Neill was on that book also. So no, I've not checked it out, but I'd like to because Sam Neill's art's beautiful. His run on Daredevil was amazing with Matt Wade. So yeah, yeah. Well, and I think a lot of your artists and your writers, big time, are looking to do something like that. Also, a lot of them are going and doing Indiegogo or Kickstarters for independent comics. We've been seeing that for a while happen, where they're putting out their own thing. And a lot of the Image stuff, a lot of times there's an agreement for a creator-owned stuff to where it's not being owned by Image, but it's being owned by the creator.
Well, I don't think Image owns any of their stuff. I think Image is just the outlet for everyone owns their stuff from Image. Well,
and that was the whole point of Image back in the day when people left to go to Image, was that they would own their own. But yes, but yeah, that seems to be a wave of the future heading that way.
Well, right, and I know one of my favorite writers, Scott Snyder, has done something on Kickstarter, and I wish I would have been able to get in on some of that, but I didn't at the time, and that's okay. But Jeff Johns and Gary Frank have already announced that their next project, other than something that they might be doing for DC coming up, is going to be over with Image, and I've already said I want to get in on that. I think that's a well, Gary Frank's artwork, first of all, is amazing, and I like Jeff Johns' writing, so
yeah. Well, and Jeff's got to be, get back to what he does best, because apparently it's not sure running, but it's.
Well, it's interesting though, because I finally got around to being able to watch Titans. And he wrote a bunch of the episodes, and he's executive producer, and it's really good. You don't want to watch it with your kids.
No, I'm in season 2 right now. So
let me put it this way:
season 2.
Don't watch it with your kids under age of 14. If they're at 14, they've probably heard most of the words that are being said on that show, but I was actually very impressed. I would like to see some of the stuff that's going to happen in season 3.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's things there that they have. I don't want to spoil anybody watching the show, but I can't wait till they introduce Brother Blood, because apparently Marv Wolfman and George Perez have given their blessing to the show to use their storylines that they wrote. And although they don't do the exact storylines, the storylines are really, really pretty good. But Brother Blood hasn't shown up, which is interesting because you've got, Deathstroke shown up, and you've got Coriander, you got Starfire and Blackfire getting ready to go at it.
Right, I was gonna say Blackfire. Yeah, that's a big time storyline. That and I'm only, like I said, halfway through season 2. Yep. So because of that same problem, because I've got an 11-year-old boy that would probably enjoy it, but it's a bit much for him. So yeah, so I'm excited because I actually have liked season 2 better than season 1 so far.
Really?
Yeah. But I like because of the focusing on getting the Titan's Tower and kind of the training, and then
See, I was disappointed it wasn't on an island just off New York City.
Well, when they said San Francisco, I'm like, are we going to put it on an island out there? Because that'd be really cool. And they didn't, but yeah.
I mean, they at least justify it. It's hidden.
Right.
Unlike the comic, it was pretty much everybody knew where the Titans were. This is hidden.
Come and attack them here. Attack them here.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Now, have you watched any of not Suicide Squad?
Doom Patrol?
Sorry, Doom Patrol.
I watched the first season, and boy, is the language rough in that one. You think it's rough in Titans? It is. And it starts off with one character cursing the entire time, and then all of a sudden, all the characters are following suit. But
what I thought was funny was the fact that the Titans episode where they introduced them, it's most of the same characters, but I don't think it's the same actor playing the negative guy, and it's obviously not the same character playing the professor.
Right.
I mean, but who they got to play the professor on the show is excellent.
Right. I agree.
But
Bond.
Right. Yeah. But I just thought it was funny because I got to that episode and I'm like, wait a second. Because Titans came on to HBO Max after after Doom Patrol, and I've watched a couple of episodes of Doom Patrol. I'm kind of slowly picking my way through that. But I was like,
it's good.
These aren't the same actors. Yeah.
Doom Patrol is very much like the comic book in that it's one of those things where you're like, what's going on?
Well, and it's got a lot of the characters that one of our, you either love him or you hate him, Grant Morrison was involved with. And so
well, now you have mostly the original group of Doom Patrol, but then you throw in a couple extra characters there too.
Well, the one who's the multiple personalities is the Grant Morrison creation, and then the character that good grief, Wash plays, the guy who narrates most of the episodes, he's a Grant Morrison character.
He's fun. So, and the fact that you got him to play Alan to play him, that was perfect. So, So no, I'm enjoying that. Have you watched the Harley Quinn cartoon?
Nope, that's next time. So you're gonna laugh because I love The Mandalorian.
Yes.
And so my big thing was trying to watch as many episodes of Clone Wars as I could before the last episode. And I've got only about 6 episodes in, but I'm loving the Clone Wars too. I liked it before and watched some of them, but was never able to watch it on a steady basis. So it's nice having Disney Plus to go and watch that, and then turn around and watch Rebels and get that whole storyline. And
Ahsoka's story will make more sense once you're done with Clone Wars and then watch Rebels. It'll make a lot more sense of what's going on. But it's worth checking out, most definitely. Harley Quinn is a fun, crazy ride that again is not for kids at all. It's completely
I've seen the commercials,
and the you can tell that this is actually from Harley's mind. This is her perception of things, and her take on Commissioner Gordon is hysterical. I love that. And Clayface. Clayface is my favorite character from the whole series because I'll just say this: Clayface wants to be an actor.
Yes, of course he does.
So that's
his origin is an actor.
Right. But they play that to the T's in this whole thing, and everything is about turning into his role. So, I know I've read some of the Clayface comics with Batman back in the 80s and other things, and his character I'm sure has evolved since then, but a lot of it was focused on he was angry, he was doing this, and it was rarely about bringing out any humor in the character or bringing out that actor side. But they play it to the nines in this series, so it's a lot of fun.
You actually
but again,
probably
not for kids.
you probably would have liked the Detective Comics run that started with the DC Rebirth.
Mm.
And that was one of the books that they kept the numbering on, but that book was Batman, but less Batman. It was a team book, and it was more about a lot of the sidekick characters, Batwoman and stuff like that, and they put together a team, and Clayface was one of them. It was great because they redeemed the character in some very interesting ways, and
I'll have
played
to check
the whole.
That out. Yeah,
yeah, you should, because they played the whole. He's misunderstood. He was a victim of his circumstance, and he didn't do that to himself. Like a lot of the villains, they are what they are because of how they chose to be that way. He didn't choose to be that way.
So talking about Batman, tell me, and I'm assuming you've been reading this. So explain to me Batman and the Three Jokers.
Oh, yeah. So, I just finished issue number 3. So that originally came out of what they were doing leading up to the Rebirth, the DC Rebirth. So there was a storyline that was the Darkseid Wars that was in Justice League. And really good. Jeff Johns writing, and the artwork was amazing. So at the end of all of that, there is the Mobius chair from the New Gods,
right?
And Mobius, the character, is killed, and then Batman gets into the chair, and he becomes part of that character that sits in the chair, all knowing and all this kind of stuff. So he's basically
Professor X.
Sort of, except that Professor X doesn't know everything in the world anyway. So at one point he asks the chair who the Joker is, and there was something about, you've got to be kidding. That can't be true. And then when they finish the storyline, you go back to the Batcave, and Batman's sitting at his thing with the great big, multi-million-dollar screens that no one can understand where all the money goes to. And there's the pictures of the Three Jokers up there. There's the classic Joker from back in the 30s and the 40s. There is the 80s Joker, the one that killed Jason Todd with the crowbar.
Right.
And then there is the modern take. Excuse me. The Scott Snyder shaved head, Joker. And so this comic it took 2 years. No, it took longer than that. It took basically from the time they started the Rebirth all the way through now. And a lot of those comics are hitting like 50 if they are a monthly comic. So it's taken almost 4.5 years to get to that storyline. That book was promised a year ago. So it took a year to actually get the book out. But DC, I think lately, has not been releasing anything until they actually have almost all the comics ready to go, ready to publish.
Right.
That's a whole other thing. We can talk Batman, Catwoman later. But anyway, the storyline goes through about these Three Jokers. Well, do you want me to spoil?
Well, if you're wanting to read it, make sure you don't listen.
Right. Yeah. So in the end, there's only one, and there's a great big reveal at the end that. No, I can't give it away. I mean, it was too good. I got to the end, I was like, oh, because there had been stories that they are that the writers, Jeff Johns and the artist. Oh, good grief! Who's the artist on that? Canadian. Can't think of his name. He's the same artist that did the Darkseid War on Justice League.
Okay. Yeah.
They've already got a storyline ready for a sequel to it. But there is a huge thing that you learn about Batman at the very end, a secret that he's known that and wow, how do I put this? It ties in a death in the family. It ties in the Killing Joke. It ties in all kinds of stuff. Just some really, really cool reveals in like the last 3 pages of the last issue. The
So
artwork
it's
is
only
worth
3 issues
admission.
long.
It's
Only
3
3 issues long.
prestige issues,
Yeah.
yeah. Which I find interesting. DC's kind of going back to doing prestige format. They hadn't done a lot of prestige format, the square bound
Right.
issues in quite a long time. So they're kind of going back to that.
Which is an interesting thing when you're, seeming to have money issues that you would go back to a prestige format, but I know it's just for a special thing here. So yeah,
right. No ongoing series that way, but yes, they're giving artists a chance to do a story that they've wanted to do for a long time, and a writer and an artist. So you had Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo that did their storyline, the Batman's Last Tale. The last night or whatever it was. And so it's one of those things where people are getting to do a lot of it's their Black Label stuff, but that one wasn't a Black Label story.
Interesting. Well, I had seen a YouTube video kind of talking about the first issue a little bit, and I was like, I'm fascinated by it, but I just wasn't sure what was going on or how all that worked. But okay, thanks for clearing that up.
Right. As much as I feel like it, I hate to be a spoiler. I understand it. If it was 6 months from now when we were talking about it, I'm like, okay, spoilers. Right. If you haven't read it by now, too bad.
Go read it or turn it off right now.
Right. But issue 3 just came out like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. So, yes, it was delayed around a year. The new Batman Catwoman book by Tom King and Clay Mann that was finishing up his storyline that he was supposed to do all the way through issue 102 or 103. And apparently that was right after AT&T. Someone doesn't like Tom King in AT&T, doesn't like his writing. So pulled him off of Batman.
Right.
And had someone else come in, and that book's done pretty well, following up with it. But the storyline that he was supposed to write, Batman Catwoman, they changed artists and got Clay Mann, and apparently he's got all the issues done and drawn. It came out, I think, today, was the release date, because DC Comics release on Tuesday now. Yeah. So yes, it's out today, and so they have, monthly issues, so they'll be able to get the other issues inked and colored and ready to go, and they won't be behind any.
Right.
At least we don't think so.
Well, and I know part of that was COVID delayed some of that, because I know a lot of things were shut down for months with that.
It did, and that really surprises me too. Of course, they had the whole DDO thing. What surprises me is when comics were basically held up for 3-4 months, you would have thought that would have been the perfect way to get that going again. Of course, I think DC and Marvel all went, if we can't open up the comic stores, we can't sell comics. Can't open up bookstores. We can't open up anything. And that's how most people still get their comics.
Right.
For
the moment.
Right now there is. It would be interesting to me. It wouldn't surprise me at all if you found DC and Marvel both doing their own direct ship to people, which is really bad for local comic book shops.
Right.
But it wouldn't surprise me at all with DC doing their own, getting away from Diamond and doing their own distributors. It wouldn't surprise me at all that they try to be their own comics distributor, which is something they did in the 70s.
Right.
I remember looking at the back of the comics, and there was a address that you would mail your check to, and DC would ship comics directly to you.
I got some in the mail. My father used to get Justice League, Legion of Superheroes, both through the mail every month. He did that for years, and then even in college, I think my wife got me a subscription that way through Marvel one year for Amazing Spider-Man. So, but yeah, so it was around even into the early '90s. Now I think that changed, but yeah, that's possible. Now the problem with it coming in through the mail is a lot of times it got bent. Because it didn't come first class shipping.
Right.
So, all those things. So.
Well, and apparently I've been hearing that people are actually impressed with the one company that DC's still working with, because they'd have books come in from Diamond that there were times when the entire box couldn't be used.
Right.
Because they'd have a gash in the side of it. And apparently the whoever it is, I can't remember if it's Lunar. Is that who they're still working with? Or
I believe so.
UHC or something
I think
like
they're
that.
still
One
working
of the
with Lunar. Yeah.
So both of them got really high marks for the way that they were shipping books in. And in fact, our local comic book shop, I'll plug Nameless City because that's where I still get my comics from. They were telling me that they get their comics a week early.
Oh, really?
But they're embargoed for a week. But they're getting their comics an entire week early.
Wow.
So they can make sure that they've got their shipment, because we used to try to go in on Wednesdays, and you'd go in and they were still putting comics away.
Right. Yeah, they were still trying to figure out what all was in the box and what was ruined, and yeah, that was a problem. So, okay, good. I want to say we've got one viewer now. We've had 3, and so if you guys have any comments, make sure to drop comments. If you want to say anything, even say hi to us, do that. We'll read your comments and throw them out here. So feel free to drop comments as we're live here. That's part of the fun of being live, is we're happy to see your comments. So. What are you really enjoying that you're reading from DC right now? My list is easy because I'm only reading one, and it's Wonder Woman.
Right.
And I'm enjoying this not out of Wonder Woman.
Huh? You're enjoying it.
I'm enjoying it. I was getting Supergirl, and it was kind of sometimes, and then they went to all digital, but I'm really liking Wonder Woman.
Right. Well, Supergirl was really good when they had McGuire doing the artwork. I mean, and bringing back I love his artwork, and I know your dad hated his artwork on Justice League, but
because my father is a Silver Age Justice League guy, and that was not Silver Age Justice League at all.
Right. So, yeah, and then they got weird. I quit collecting Supergirl about 3 issues into the whole infected storyline. I'm like, what am I enjoying? Well, it's just stupid fun, but the Dark Knights comic is stupid fun. I worry about Scott Snyder because I think he's been around Grant Morrison a little bit too much. Because you really got to concentrate on where his stories are going sometimes.
Right.
Let's see. So, Strange Adventures by Tom King and Mitch Gerads, and one of my great. This makes me mad. I can't think of who the other guy is. Why can I not think of who the other guy is? This is really bad. Anyway, I'll think of it here in a little bit. That's a really interesting book because it's told. It's 2 stories, and one artist does the Mitch Gerads does the today, and the other artist does the back in the past. And so you're reading along, and unlike some of those, you know exactly which part of the storyline you're reading based on the artist that's drawing.
Right.
And so that's pretty cool. That's a good book. But those are a limited series. Let's see. Justice League Dark is a very interesting book. It's the Magic characters.
Yes.
But it's a book that centers around Wonder Woman as kind of the leader of the group. but it's got Zatara, and it's got Detective Chimp and Swamp Thing and John Constantine, and that one I really, really enjoy. Sometimes more than the regular Justice League book.
Sure.
But that one's really good. Let me see, what else is there that...
Before you do that, we've got a comment here. So Mandy. Hey, Mandy, thanks for watching and commenting. We do appreciate that. She wants to know what comic series we would recommend a newbie who knows little about characters. So I'll let you take it from the DC perspective since we're doing that. I will throw in some Marvel ones that I find that would be really good to jump into also. Right,
and I will admit, DC has 80 years worth of history back there, and what I'm reading that they're going towards is an all stories count all the time mentality. So none of this, something happens and time resets itself and forget everything that happened before, we're starting all over. I will tell you, if you're looking for I think that one of the best things DC did was steal Brian Bendis from Marvel. I really like his Superman stuff. I know there's a lot of people that do not like his Superman stuff, but I am enjoying it. And the nice thing about what he's done on Superman is you don't need a whole lot of introduction to his storyline when he started about a year ago. So he came in and he started with a miniseries called Man of Steel, and an homage to John Byrne doing the Man of Steel back in 1986. And it pretty much told you everything you needed to know about what was going on in the world of Superman. So, you know, if you were going to go back and get that line and start reading the Superman books, that's a good story that you'll learn everything you ever needed to know about Superman and all the accompanying characters with them. Something else that's new. I mean, the other thing is trying to figure out, you know, do you like an artist or a writer? Because a lot of times a writer will come in and we'll do at least 2 or 3 issues where they reset things and they kind of reintroduce the characters for new people coming in.
Right. Starting places. Yeah.
Right. And March could be an interesting starting place also for DC, depending on what they do after the break, after they do this whole future state revamp. And apparently I'm only one of 2 people at the comic store that was even interested in those books. I was told the other day, but I'm kind of interested because the Convergence stuff was back when DC did those 2 months off for Convergence. But what came out of that was the Superman and Lois with John Kent came out of that, which was one of the things that I completely missed. I didn't get those books, and I really hate myself for it now. But there are some other cool things that came out of that. So I'm kind of interested in what comes out of this. Of course, DC's done a lot of stuff where they did stories in the next 5 years. This is where we're going to be, and we're going to write stories to that. And 3 years in, they toss it out the window. And what was that whole Future 52 or whatever it was at one point with DC? And yeah.
Well, and let me say, Mandy, to kind of bring Brian's points together here. One, find something that interests you. So if there's a character you've always wanted, don't worry about the past. Jump in, and most comics are written to a point to where you can jump in right now. So find a character or find some art that you like, or if you've heard something about a certain artist, pick up an issue. It doesn't hurt to pick up an issue. No. You can find those issues digitally along within the comic stores. And I'm not sure how local you are. If you're local to us here in Springfield, Mandy, both Brian and I do go to a comic book store that's a pretty good comic book store. So Nameless City Comics over near Bass Pro on Campbell Street. It's hidden away in one of those little shops, but it's a good place to go. but find something that strikes your fancy. Some characters that I think are very accessible to new people. On the Marvel side, Miss Marvel is a really good one. She's very much she's a teenager who's going through teenage angst and trying to learn how to be a superhero. Very much what Spider-Man was in the 60s, Miss Marvel is now. And she's a pretty relatable character. She is, she has some check boxes for the minority stuff. That doesn't matter to me because I could care less because she's a female character. She is Muslim American. She's got certain check boxes that some people, and those are great. But what's important is they tell a really good story. They make characters very accessible and also very flawed. And so you get a flawed teenager, which all teenagers are flawed. Even those of us that are a little older than teenagers are flawed. But that's a good place to start. The Spider-Man comic book called Spider-Man, who's Miles Morales, is also another good read for new readers. That way you don't have to know all the history of Peter Parker, even though I would say pick up an issue of Amazing Spider-Man and just go with it because I love that character so much. But the Miles Morales Spider-Man, which is just called Spider-Man, is a really good place to start also on the Marvel side. The Avengers teams are always changing up, so you can jump onto Avengers and just kind of go with it, and pretty soon you'll have a new team, and they'll explain things as it goes. The X-Men comics I don't recommend as much for a newbie unless you have some understanding of the characters from watching the X-Men's 90 cartoon or had some exposure to the X-Men before. They get kind of convoluted in some of the storylines, and then
even the new thing that they just did that was supposed to restart everything because the new writer they brought in and all that kind of stuff. I picked up an issue and went, I don't get any of this.
I understand. Yeah, Hickman. And Hickman's a really good storyteller, but he's a very long storyteller. What is it that Dan Slott's writing now, Brian? It's not Fantastic Four, is it? It might be Fantastic Four.
I don't know, and I don't have anything from Marvel that I'm getting right now because anything I find that I like from Marvel, they end up canceling. I like Doctor Strange, and they canceled it, and that was Mark Waid writing. Of course, there's rumors that Mark Waid's coming over to DC to write some stuff. And
I love Mark Waid as a writer. Maybe for Brian and I, we have different focuses on the comics. Brian's very much an art person. The art catches his eye. If he likes an artist, he's really going to focus on that. I'm more of a writer kind of guy. If I like a writer, I'm more likely to be loyal to him. Dan Slott's one of the writers over in Marvel that I love. He's a long storyteller, but he tells good one-issue stories that lead somewhere. So I like that. So
didn't he write like 10 years worth of Amazing Spider-Man, though?
Yeah, well,
wasn't he the writer of Amazing
Spider-Man? He didn't do it that long, but the problem was they were doing 3 issues a month at that point. So he was writing 3 issues a month. So he would get like 3 years worth of comics in 1 year period, but he was writing all of that. Yeah.
No, but I thought he was one of the writing teams that came on right after Brand New Day.
He was, but they rotated those guys around, so he wasn't there continually. Right. So he wrote a little bit there, but he came on. I think he did like 6 or 7 years though in Amazing Spider-Man. Yeah. So to answer your question, it really depends on what you're looking for. But start with one, see if you like it. If you don't like it, and the other thing I would say is if you go into some place like the comic book store we mentioned, if you go into Nameless City, go up and talk to the people at the counter. They're very nice. They have a couple ladies that work there. So if you're worried about talking to some guy that's going to judge you, and those ladies are extremely knowledgeable. Actually, the owner's wife, the owner jokes about how his wife knows way more than he does. And people will kind of dismiss her, and then she'll correct them and go on. And it always amazes people. But go in and just tell them what kind of things you like. If you like sci-fi, there's some good sci-fi comics, both Marvel and DC. There's also a lot of really good independent and Image comics that are sci-fi. If you like fantasy, there's a lot of stuff out there. If you're Star Wars, there's been some really good Marvel Star Wars. Now that there is rumors that Marvel may be ending the Star Wars comics because they're not selling as well. That is something in today's day and age you might run into. You might find something you like and they will cancel it, and because of sales, because Disney and Warner Brothers are extremely strapped for cash, and so they're looking for every way to cut budgets. But thank you for your question. If that doesn't answer it, just let us know, and we can get AJ in here and she can kind of tell you what to look for. Also, she should be back with us next week. And but thank you for that. So Bryan, I know we were talking about DC. We talked about the comic books a little bit. So I wanted to ask this one question. So put on your
my procrastinator hat.
Your procrastinator hat. That's it. Yeah. Put on your turban and be and get out the envelope sealed from the front porch of Funk and Wagnall
in a mayonnaise jar.
In a mayonnaise jar. Yes. And in 5 years, where do you see DC Comics? Do you see it being mostly digital? Do you see it still printing? Do you see Warner Brothers selling it, or AT&T actually, but selling it off to somebody else? There was talk at one point trying to get one of the other publishing companies to actually do all the publishing and all the writing for those comics. Where do you see things in 5 years?
Yeah, well, to me, it would. Where do I actually think they'll end up? Or
where do you actually think it'll end up?
I think someone will come to their senses and realize that we can't stop publishing comics for multiple reasons. The fan base that keeps comics going, for the most part, are people like you and me that actually want to have our favorite comics in our hands. We want them in a box somewhere. I would hope that we get to the point, now we're talking about businesses, but I'd love to see them get to the point where they realize that if we're doing digital, we can still do comics as digital, but we don't have to charge as much. We don't have the printing and the shipping and all that kind of stuff. So you can have them be $1 less even, to encourage people to get them that way. But I don't see them getting rid of comics because there's too many good ideas that come out of comic writers.
Right.
And what ends up happening is what you did in the comic doesn't translate directly over to the movies or the TV shows. I mean, that because the Infinity War and everything else that we know from the MCU is not at all what any of those one stories ever were. Right. And DC slowly figuring out what they want to do with their storyline.
Right.
For all of their stuff. But you don't take comic writers and tell them to go write movies and cartoons and TV shows because it doesn't work. Their minds are long game. And it's funny because a lot of your parents and, well, people that were my parents' age, they were in the mentality of one issue at a time.
Right.
Every issue at the end, finish the story, and you went to the next one. And now it's long game. You've got Jeff Johns telling a Green Lantern story that took 7 years to tell, from the time he did Green Lantern Rebirth all the way to the end of Blackest Night. And he introduced all that kind of stuff. And you talked about Dan Slott. So you can't take people that write that way and turn them into TV. And obviously your artists, what are you going to do with your artists? I would love to see DC say, we want to retain all the rights to movies and TV, or we want to be your distributor for these things and we want a long-term contract, but we're going to sell this off and have a bunch of the artists get together and purchase the DC name and catalog, the ones that really care about it, and let them become the keepers of the flame for DC. But
Right.
I could see the same
Well,
thing happening over there with Marvel and Disney,
right.
who, you know, they don't know what to do with the comic line. So let the people
Right.
who know comics have the comics and do whatever they're going to do and see where it goes. I
Yeah.
don't know.
In fact, I was talking to Keith, our
Yep.
good friend over at Pop Culture Minefield, earlier before the show, and Keith and I were talking about how it looks like something like, you know, what we were talking about. There could be some big changes coming with Marvel on the heels of some changes coming with DC, and where are things going to go? And I told him they just need to sell Marvel comics to me, or just give me Marvel comics, and I can fix the ship. And as a fan, I know what you know. I'm not perfect. I don't know everything, but I can take charge of this. And he's like, well, I want to do that for DC. I'm like, we could fix these guys. You know, we could sell, or, you know, somehow do the whole rights for the movies and do all the rights for TV and all that. But let us handle the comic book part and just keep us as a separate entity. And then we have to worry about ourselves making money rather than trying, because making money for a small company is way different than making money for a global company like Disney or Warner or AT&T.
Well, and Marvel wasn't doing bad on their own. I mean, Disney just bought them because Disney wanted to buy them. I mean, there was no reason Disney needed to buy Marvel.
Other than they wanted the rights to the movies and stuff. So
right, but Marvel started all of the MCU long before Disney was involved.
Right.
So there was no reason for them to do that kind of thing. And then once that happened, you know, you had all the other stuff that blew up. The guy who was doing the TV shows and the guy who was doing the movies, and all fighting against who has what rights to do what and things like that. And you even see some of that over in DC. You see people playing games about who can they mention on a show or who can they show on a show.
Right.
I mean, you weren't allowed to show Batman or Superman in a cape on Smallville, and you know, all that kind of stuff. So
that's true. I do want to mention we had 4 viewers there for a moment. Now we're down to 2, but we're happy you're here. Thank you guys for watching.
But the sad part is, I don't know. If you had asked me a year ago, before COVID and all this kind of stuff, I had an idea of where things were going. I don't think I was really happy about it because I'm not a big DDO fan. So I wasn't happy. Of course, I've not been happy with a lot of stuff that DDO ends up doing. But he's one of the nicest guys I've ever met. You know, when we met him at the KC Comic-Con, I was like going, he's not at all the guy I thought I was gonna meet. But
Planet Comic-Con of Kansas City. Go ahead.
Oh, was it Planet Comic-Con? Oh, did I say KC Comic-Con?
You did. I just wanted to correct it for
Comic-Con, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. There's really a Kansas City Comic-Con currently, but Planet Comic-Con, we want to give them a nice shout out because they're always nice to us, and you know, we want to make sure we mention them correctly. I know you did. I just wanted to shout that out to them. Plus, we like it when they acknowledge us too. So we got, and I think this is from Keith. It says it's from GeekyKOOL.com. This is why the whole IDW situation was not good. And I think what Keith is talking about there is with IDW, there was they were looking at potentially having Marvel comics go through IDW, and then of course everything is kind of falling apart with IDW. COVID has come in, a lot of stuff going on. So I agree, Keith. If there's something I'm missing
really not smart things. They paired up with some of the comic gators and all that kind of stuff. You know, and the worst thing I hate is hearing the rumors and from people that I don't even know are in the know. Yeah, I know. I saw that.
That's funny, Keith.
Oh, I'm sure that he was getting notes. I don't think that he's wrong. I think AT&T thinks they know how to run a comics company, and they don't have. I mean, they can barely run my cell phone.
Well, what they're good at though is making money, and they came in to Warner Brothers, who was gashing money in lots of different ways,
Mm-hmm.
and basically said, we can fix that. We're just going to cut out some jobs, and they did that throughout Warner, not just through DC. But yeah, it's possible.
Well,
And I
right.
don't know that they're the reason Didio left. I think there were some other issues there. The problem when you've got multiple people at the top, like they did,
Right.
is that whose vision do you follow? And follow, not fall. Whose vision do you follow? And I think that was in some of the things that he was proposing. I don't know were necessarily good for DC Comics in the future, but I don't know.
No, and I think one of the problems also is you've got competing desires, because you've got HBO. I mean, when AT&T came in and bought all of this, they ended up with HBO. They ended up with DC. They ended up with Warner Brothers. They ended up with DirecTV. They ended up with a whole lot of things that all wanted their attention. You've got DirecTV about ready to go under themselves. Thank God we actually have got some kind of decent internet out here finally. But I think what you saw there also was Warner Brothers starting to sweat on the fact that, Disney was buying up all these,
right.
They bought the Star Wars, they bought Marvel, they bought Fox, they bought this and they bought that. And so they needed to find someone to partner with, and AT&T had cash, but AT&T was, like a lot of companies, was struggling in their own right, just because they people are strapped for cash and all that kind of stuff like that. So I don't know. It's where will we be in 5 years? Who knows? Who knows?
That's really all you can say.
I will hate it if we don't get comics printed.
Right.
At least for the ones that I want. I want to collect.
And we may not need 50 different issues coming out every month of all these other characters. Actually, what I always loved as a kid, one of my favorite comics was the Marvel team-ups, where you would get Spider-Man and some other character. And a lot of times it was a secondary character or whatever, and you would tell a really, sometimes not a really good story, sometimes it was a hokey story, but you would tell a story with both characters teaming up and whatever. And I know that DC's had that with several other different issues.
Well, they had World's Finest, which was usually a Batman Superman comic, and then a backup, and then you had the Batman family, and then you had the Superman family.
Right.
They were sort of anthology books.
Right.
Of course, we're so used to having comics come out monthly. What I think is funny is reading about comics in the early 70s. The DC and Marvel were putting out books every other month.
Right.
I mean, they didn't have 12 issues in a year. They were lucky to get 8 to 6 out every year. And that was just because that was what they felt like they could afford to do.
Right. Well, and I know when Cloak and Dagger got their own series, it was bi-monthly. And that was in the 80s, where it was coming out every other month. So interesting. So, but yeah, Keith mentioned before AT&T, it was Warner Brothers that had ideas, and Disney was doing good buying stuff, and then two things happened: COVID and they ran afoul of Comcast. Oh.
Well, and you've it's interesting because when are we going to finally get these? We keep talking about Google. El Goog is the big bad guy right now. That's the current administration wants to break up Google because they're not nice to our current leader or executive in chief, apparently. Although I don't know what they're doing that he isn't doing to himself. But that's beside the point. But when are they going to go after Disney? When are they going to go after Paramount? CBS. When are they going to go after NBC, Comcast? When are they going to go after Warner Brothers, AT&T, and say, all of our media is getting funneled down into this interesting little funnel of 5 or 6 huge companies. It's actually surprised me that Google hasn't got in on the let's buy some of these companies.
Right. Well, who knows? It could still happen.
Right.
So, especially with where some of these companies especially movie companies like Warner Brothers and Disney, that they get most of their money from TV and from movies, and then COVID hit, and they're both strapped for cash. There's
so
a
what do you
cash
think of the
problem.
fact that Wonder Woman's going to be coming out on Christmas Day?
I was going to mention that.
HBO Max. I mean, I
as somebody who has HBO Max.
Yeah. Right.
Well, it was interesting because they had moved it back to June. You know, they kept moving it back and moved it back to June, and then all of a sudden, like, nope, we're going to bring it out here. We're going to put it in a smaller release in theaters and do that. Keith had mentioned prior, and again, our buddy from Pop Culture Minefield had mentioned prior that movie companies are losing money by sitting on these films. They have to pay money to keep these things stored in a certain way. Plus, everything's getting backlogged. So you've got all these things. You can't release 200 movies in 1 month. So you've got something is going to have to happen. And sure enough, he actually talked about it one night that he would be surprised if Wonder Woman just didn't come out on HBO Max, and then 1 or 2 nights later, boom, they announce it that it's coming out. So, but I'm excited because I told my family we've got something to watch on Christmas Day. We've got Wonder Woman. So I'm super excited for it because I've been looking forward to that movie for a long time.
Well, right, and I've been looking forward to. I mean, on the other side, Marvel. I mean, I've been looking forward to the Black Widow movie.
Right.
Really looking forward because I mean, Scarlett.
Yes.
Come on.
I know.
And so it's just interesting, and well, right, and if Keith is the one who's typing that in, but you know that CBS All Access is completely changing. It's becoming Paramount Plus.
He does
which
know
will
that.
be interesting.
Yeah.
Well, and then me, because there's a lot of Paramount movies that I like.
Right.
That you can't get through. Well, how do I put this? Paramount's one of the 2 big movie companies that refuses to be part of Movies Anywhere. So if you buy them on any of the places, you can get them. So sadly, I've got like 3 different copies of movies like Cloverfield. You know, I'm a huge Cloverfield fan. I think I've got 3 copies, and 2 of them I got for free. But one of them is in Movies Anywhere, and one of them's in Google, and one of them's over in something else, Vudu, I think. Just because they refuse to let them travel between any of those. Now, I don't buy movies much anymore because, you know, having internet is kind of nice to stream whatever you want to watch most of the time.
Right. That's true. That's true. Well, that's what we were talking about with movies sitting on the shelf. Part of why Wonder Woman is coming out. Right. But yeah, and I think it'll be huge. That's a big draw.
I love going to a theater and seeing a movie with a whole bunch of people. I love that experience. Do I like
all
watching?
I can say is,
go ahead.
All I can say is I miss watching movies with Jill.
Just
she might talk during the movie, but that's okay.
Leather arms on whatever you're wearing so their nails doesn't dig into you. Yeah, taking her to see Cloverfield. That was
we miss you, Jill.
Yeah.
So, but it's kind of crazy. I think, and from what I'm seeing, it looks like it's a very good chance that Godzilla versus Kong will be doing the same thing. That it's going to either come out to Netflix, which has made an offer for it, or it's going to go out to HBO Max because Warner Brothers owns 25% of that film. So let's.
Well, and have you seen Netflix latest ads? Their latest ads on Sunday were a new movie every week. That's what they're advertising is a brand new movie every week on Netflix. And they're not weird remakes with unknown actors or like the Hallmark actors where the one girl who's been on 5 different already this year, 5 brand new ones. I told Sandra that she's kind of slutty. She drops those guys left and right and can't figure out what kind of job she wants. And
well, that's what you get. But I forget what the name of that family is. There's a family that I follow on
Oh yes,
on Facebook, the Holdersons or whatever it is, and they did their their generic Hallmark movie. That was great. So
the whole I don't know what you're talking about.
He's rich. What?
He owns a tree farm.
Yeah, that was great. So yes, but no, Netflix is. Tell you what, as much as Disney and HBO Max has been getting a ton of good press, and they've done great things. Both of them are putting out great series. HBO Max has really stepped up the game and put out some really cool stuff this year, and then bringing in the stuff from the DC universe, which has been awesome. Netflix still has it. I mean, Netflix is, I go over to Netflix, I'm like, oh my gosh, my list here is super long of things I want to watch. I've got like 10 series started that I need to finish up at different points over there. And their new movies are good. So yeah, there's the streaming is really where it's at. That's where the competition is. And it makes sense that, when this time of COVID where people are afraid to go to theaters are losing money, that you're going to look to go that some sort of route like that.
Right.
Yeah. And I agree with Keith. Keith and I have talked about that a couple weeks ago. Part of the problem is how much money these movies are being made for. And that's actually, because you basically have to make $500 million to really turn stuff around on some of it. Well, and even
it's the whole problem with actors and athletes.
Well, but it's not just that. It's your special effects. It's how you're doing everything, because you can do some stuff practically on special effects. It's how you're rushing things. Sometimes it's the amount of rushing that you're doing with that. Netflix.
But Skyline proved you can do a movie on a budget, not a good movie, but a movie.
Hey, the third one's about to come out.
I know.
Did you see that? I think I tagged you in that. So
no,
Skyline with the 3 in it. I'm like, okay, I've got to see it. Anyway, so we need to. I don't know if are they still doing the Horrible Movie podcast?
No, they're not.
No, I didn't think so. I didn't think they were.
Try to do one like once every other month or something like that, but. I was really shocked when I found out that they had stopped doing that. But,
well, I stopped getting notices on it. So then I'm like, okay, maybe they're taking a break. And then I'm like, because we want to do Skyline. That would have been perfect for them.
Yeah.
If those guys are watching at any point, let us know. We'll do a special episode. We'll do Geeky Kool
COVID
presents
from home.
Yeah, we'll do a Geeky Kool presents horrible movie podcast / over. We'll tie them together for you guys. So, but yeah, so we talked a little bit about some of the TV shows that you're liking on HBO Max. Are you still watching any of the CW shows, and what are you thinking about those? Because we talked about how good they were, but some of them have not stayed so good.
Right, and I still liked The Flash. I still thought that was a really good show. Supergirl, for the most part, I still really enjoyed.
And she's on her last season.
Right. And
being replaced by Superman and Lois. That's kind of weird.
Which, I'm kind of looking forward to that. That's going to be interesting to see what they do, because they were going to introduce John Kent, but now they've got 2 boys, which will be weird that they decided to go with 2 boys. Green Arrow, its first season was interesting, but it wasn't exactly the Green Arrow that I knew. And
it was Batman.
And then the second season went weird, and I don't think Green Arrow ever really clicked with me for a full season. There'd be a good episode here and a good episode there, but it was never great. And I like Legends of Tomorrow was better. Fun.
Yes.
But I got away from watching them because they became not until after January would they come back, and then trying to get back into watching them was just tough.
So Netflix is the way to do that, at least so far that I found.
Right. I need to
just start streaming those. So yeah, but yes.
So the the stuff the DC has been doing on CW, I've been watching the only season, but it's actually pretty good. I've been impressed with it. Was the Swamp Thing series, and it was one of the original series that they did for the DC Universe streaming service that Titans came from, and now that. And interesting, they don't have to bleep it very often, but what's funny is they fuzz out their mouth and the audio goes off for just like a little. They don't even let you read their lips at all when they do it, but they don't have to do it very often. But man, it's pretty intense. It's in the swamps of Louisiana, and they're pretty much staying true to the whole idea of of the Swamp Thing story, and but it's not related to any other Arrowverse stuff, which is interesting.
Right.
But now I've watched the Titans and I've watched Doom Patrol. I know why that's the only one they could put on CW because they only had to bleep it once an episode, not once every 5 minutes during an episode.
So some more comments here. So we do love your guys' comments. So some more stuff from Keith real quick. This is in reference to making movies for less than $100 million. And Deadpool and Hellboy films. First Deadpool movie, right? The second one wasn't a whole lot more, but still did go more. Two boys talking about the Kents there. How Berlanti messed up with Jimmy Olsen, with killing Jimmy Olsen and all that. So now we're going to flip over to Mandy's comment. So we're glad you're still with us, Mandy. Thank you for watching. Like Green Arrow and Flash, but hated it when they combined episodes because they had to catch it. And I understand that the crossovers are fun, but you do have to kind of do that. And actually, it kind of stalled where I was watching stuff because I was trying to watch stuff with my son, and we watched all the Flash, and then we stopped and we watched all the Supergirl up until the Crisis, and then we went over to Batwoman, and then things got busy and we haven't finished that. So we keep waiting to watch this Crisis episode, but we're just not there yet. So, but yeah, so I understand that.
I thought they did a pretty good job usually with those crossovers.
Yeah.
That you didn't have to necessarily go watch them. Now, if you wanted to know who the characters were, you kind of needed to know from the other episode, especially when they throw in the legend characters. And the last couple of years, that's what they've used to jumpstart the Legend series each year is the crossover series and stuff like that. But
sometimes it's good to know what's going on because you're like, what's going on? What happened there? So going to watching those sometimes is a difficult thing. Now, the first year that Netflix had pulled them all in there, and they did a crossover, they made a crossover thing to where you could just go and grab the crossover episodes so you could watch all of those. And that actually made it a little easier because you're like, okay, I don't have to go watch all of this. I can just go watch the crossover, and then I can go back and figure out what's going on with those characters.
Yeah.
So I feel you, Mandy. I feel you. Flash, I really liked. Arrow, season 1, I didn't like it until the end, and then season 2 I liked, and then it's just became so much a CW show. It became so much, I want him, but I can't have them.
And you have to introduce the obligatory gay character, and you have to have not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just funny because it turned into exactly what you said, the obligatory CW show.
Right.
And I think that's where they might have missed a little bit, where they weren't writing stories for the fans. They were writing stories for their CW audience. Right. But I never feel like that ever happened with Flash necessarily.
Not the same level. No, not. I mean, it did get a little. It did have the CW teen angst thing, and they do that super often. So, but not as much as some of the other shows. A couple more comments from Keith here. Swamp Thing is good. I have not seen that yet. That is one of the shows I want to see. I also want to see Stargirl. I really want to see Stargirl.
I forgot to mention, we love Stargirl.
Yeah.
We love Stargirl.
Well, and being a Justice Society guy, so I like the older characters and then some of their younger counterparts with the Justice Society. Stargirl is one that I really, really want to see.
So
And
there's a lot of
then
controversy with Stargirl, though, going on right now,
there is.
because there is there's at least one scene where Stargirl gets into where the Justice Society meets, and
Yeah.
there's banners all along the wall, and they are obviously Alex Ross versions of those characters from when he
Right.
was doing the covers for Justice
Yes.
Society and from
And
Kingdom
those were
Come.
great covers. Oh
And
my
he
gosh, yeah.
got no credit for them at all.
Right.
And
Well,
got
not getting
no
paid for it.
royalties.
Right,
He didn't get
right.
paid for it either.
That is what I did see. Yes, I did see that. And that is a big controversy because you need to pay your artists. If you're going to use their work, and we want you to play homage to those great artists, any way you can do that. I mean, anytime you can pull in some Jack Kirby art, or you can pull in any of the great artists of the past. And I think that Alex Ross is an amazing artist. Now, cover seems to be where he really focuses and does well, but he's still amazing at what he does. So you need to definitely pay the man and give him some homage for it. But yeah, that's so. But Stargirl, I'm
sure
looking forward to.
Yeah, Stargirl is really good. In fact, it is chock full of wink, wink, nudge, nudge things. Like in the first episode, there's a scene, and I had to go back and rewatch it 3 times because there's a moving truck that is just the perfect homage to Superman. That I won't ruin it for you, but it is just amazing. The moving truck that shows up at the house to move them to their wherever they're moving to. I've watched in a while, but I just sit back and go, oh, there's that. They mention characters and things from the Byrne, when John Byrne was writing and revamping, and of course Jeff Johns is involved in that. He's the one who created the Stargirl character. So it's really good. It's really fun, and of course I got to see it only because it was on CW, because they didn't move that over to HBO Max. Although it'd be nice if they would actually do that, put them over there.
If they throw it over there. Exactly. I agree. Okay, one more thing from Keith here. The CW station of genre shows is killing comic book shows and sci-fi entertainment. Agreed. 100% there, Keith. That
Riverdale's the perfect example. Like, you had, I watched Riverdale because the girls wanted to watch it, and I was like, this is just not what I remember Archie and the gang being.
Right. Well, have you watched Sabrina over on Netflix?
I have watched a few episodes of that.
I really like Sabrina, and it's different, but the essence of the character is the same. It's just much darker than it was in the comics.
Oh, it's a whole lot darker.
Yeah. And it's not for those of faint of heart, or that aren't able to look past their religious views to see, because if you're a devout Christian, devout Catholic, devout whatever, and you go into that, it'll shock you to death. So.
I was actually very shocked in the first episode, because there are 2 people doing something. I'm like, oh, they're going to go there. Okay. All right. They're going to make them be teenagers, modern teenagers.
Right. So
yeah.
All right. So one more thing here from Keith.
But the question is, did they give him credit? And that one was, I guess, it's still blowing up, because there are, and I guess I can't blame him, because he made a lot of money, Alex Ross, for DC and some of the things that he's done. And he was known. That's why he hasn't done anything for them in quite a long time. But then that was just a really blatant thing. And I remember seeing that and thinking, those are Alex Ross. That's exactly Alex Ross right there. And then they give him no credit at all in the credits, not even a shout out.
Right. Which, If you do that, then you got to pay them royalties. That's the issue. If you acknowledge it, like, oh, did we do that by accident? Oops. All right. So, anything else exciting that for DC that you're excited about? Movies, television, or comics, or anything else coming up? Crossover events? Yeah.
And
very excited for Wonder Woman.
They were starting on the new Shazam movie, which Shazam was a lot of fun, and well, everything else is just rumors. That was the weird part. You asked me to come on and talk about DC Comics, and usually I've got in my mind things that are coming out for the next 5 to 6 months.
Right.
And there's nothing. There's no word of anything. No. Now, once in a while, some of the artists that work for DC have posted something about, just a panel, and it'll be a new project I'm working on or whatever. And of course, people will ask questions, and then they go mum, or they I can't talk about it. I just thought I'd tease everyone for a little bit.
Right.
But there is nothing much coming out about what DC is going to do after March. So I just thought it was kind of funny that that's what you wanted to talk about, because I don't have a clue. And of course, if it was Marvel, I wouldn't have a clue right now anyway, either, because all the books that I tend to like, they can end up canceling. So,
well, there are certain ones they're not going to, but yes, you're exactly right. And they seem to like to renumber, as you mentioned, which I think is nuts. But it's just volumes. It's volumes of different ones, not actual numbers in a row. So until you get to Spider-Man, and then we want to look at the big number there again. So.
Okay.
So, all right. Well, here's one more comment from Keith. That's all right. Like I said, we've been running way over. It's an hour and a half. It'll be all right. Berlanti's fault with Alex Ross.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of things is Berlanti's fault. So interesting, because when he actually helms the show and actually is focused, like the first 2 seasons of Flash, he was kind of in charge, and those were great. And things seemed to go sideways when he just kind of stops paying attention to his shows that he was doing. So, all right. So thank you for coming on, Bryan. Want to give a shout out to some of our other friends here, which we try to do every time we've got one of these shows. Again, this is episode 30. So want to we'll give a shout out to our good friends, Nerd Informants, Josh and Tim down in Branson, Missouri, and they do all sorts of coverages of movies. They have all sorts of stuff on their Facebook account and do a weekly podcast. They're a little behind us, but we love these guys. Those guys are always welcome to come on our show. And of course, one of the people talking to us in comments, we've got Keith and his pal Gary over at Pop Culture Minefield. Always an interesting listen, and they have some amazing guests. Since we do try to keep things PG or PG-13 on Geeky KOOL and on this series, here's a warning. With Gary, it's not going to be PG. Love Gary. Well, he tells you up front, if you're not at least 14, get out. And he means it, because it's not going to be appropriate for you. We also have our good friend, the Scallywag himself, Spoo, over at Scallywag Productions. I know that they're getting ready to do some more videos, and they've got a partnership with us on Geeky KOOL, so he'll be posting this up on Geeky KOOL with us, and being able to promote each other out there. And of course, our website, GeekyKOOL.com, where we're trying to keep things updated constantly with the latest news, with original articles. I did put out my opinion piece yesterday that seemed to do pretty well on how Star Wars fans just need to stop.
Oh,
just stop. Yeah,
you don't like the baby. You don't like the child's new name. Where? Sorry.
Well, and it's not even. It's some of that, but it's also of, the whole thing. Because I saw somebody talking about that today, about the worst name ever. Like, just shut up now already. Come on. What does Yoda mean to you? But the whole Yaddle, Master Yaddle was left out. Oh, shut up. Ahsoka wasn't born until 10 years after Yaddle died. Stop it. Plus, even if you're right.
It's really sad that you know that.
I did research for the article.
Got it.
If you're going to complain about something all the time, what you're going to do is you're going to drive off your people that want to create this stuff. Who wants to be involved? We've already got the lead from the last 3 Star Wars movies, like them or hate them. But Daisy was awesome, and she doesn't want anything to do with Star Wars anymore. We've driven her off because of these fans being this way. So just stop. But if you want to hear more stuff like that, come over to Geeky Kool. We do have videos. We do try to post any sort of movie trailers when movie trailers really start kicking back up, and get you the news and give you our opinions. Even talk about monoliths that show up and disappear. So you never know what you're going to get over with us. But we try to keep it geeky. So Keith did say his name is on the company, referring to Berlanti. And that's true.
It is, yeah.
So, anyway, so thank you for coming on, Bryan, talking with us, taking the place, helping me, because nobody wants to see just me for an hour. So I so appreciate that. You're always welcome to come on. Usually we're at 6:30 on Tuesday nights. This was a special episode at 7:15 because of work stuff. But we'll be back next week at 6:30, hopefully with Ace back. But anytime you want to jump on with us, Bryan, make sure to do. I know we've got a Christmas episode coming up in a couple of weeks that we're probably going to talk about our favorite Christmas movies. And we probably will talk about some other Christmas stuff along the way, because Christmas is coming really fast this year. We get Thanksgiving and Christmas just right around the corner. So, all right. Well, thank you guys for watching. We appreciate everyone that took their time to watch us, and stay geeky. Check us